And now a word with Peter Kelly, a local historian. Kelly's Eye, you must have heard it all those years on the radio. You also took a great interest in what was going on here, I take it.
Absolute, yes. Now, there was a planning application to rebuild the wheel. There was a bit of confusion initially. Plans that went in showed it being restored. And then it was demolished. So that was the decision to take, demolish it and rebuild it. So I did contact the firm in Laxey, managing director, Martin, and said, look, if you're going to rebuild it, why don't you rebuild it as it was built? And he said, yeah, good idea. So what you're seeing today is in fact a replica of the 1895 wheel and not the 1950s wheel.
The one that was, given a bit of a tart up, wasn't it, at the time, I think?
Well, it was very much Festival of Britain
yes,
in its style, yeah.
You're not normally keen on having things reconstructed, are you? But the thing had gone.
Well, it had
beyond,
gone. It had gone. So, and in fact, putting it back, so to speak, to what it was is important. People will come through the Glen now and say, oh, is that the same?
Yeah.
But as the 1950s one became a familiar scene, and on many postcards and calendars, so this one will be.
Is it right that they used to generate electricity to power the lights down here? Is that right?
Yeah, yes. Initially, it was built 1895, 2 years after the hotel was opened, by Richard Maltby Broadbent, because he needed a good water supply for the hotel.
Right.
So what he did, in putting the wheel in, it actually pumped water from the small reservoir behind up and right. I mean, it shows you the strength of the pump, up onto the roof space of the hotel, where there were 3 huge slate tanks, and it filled them with cold water. And I have a feeling it was done at night, so it was there for the next day. Eventually, Mains Water came along. The hotel had electricity from the start, but that was from the electric railway. I mean, it was just a case of plugging in to the supply outside. So after the war, with the rebuilds, they actually put a generator in, and it generated electricity, and there were fairy lights down here, down to the bandstand area, which wasn't a bandstand. It was a large covered dance floor where there was dancing during Edwardian times, pre-war times, and then after the war, I think the roof had come off. It was an open platform, and it was used for wrestling matches.
Wrestling?
What
time are we talking about? What age is this? What era?
Late 50s and early 60s.
Wrestling.
Now, if you ever come down the Glen on a summer's evening, you're sort of doing this because of the gnats. So you can imagine these poor wrestlers there in just a pair of swimming trunks, throwing one another about, being bitten to death, and I'm sure the audience were as well.